Hey, we're live. Welcome, YouTube, to Modern Alchemist Channel. I'm Aubrey Forrest. And wow, do you know we're coming up on the 7-year anniversary of the channel this month on the 27th? I was like, I should do something special. I don't know what I'm going to do, but this is definitely part of it. I think that going forward, I want to have more contact with everyone out there, all of you guys. So, yay. Welcome. So today, in addition, of course, to your questions, which I'm very happy to answer, I wanted to answer a question that was asked some time ago. And oh, rats, I just cleared that off. But one of our viewers some time ago had commented on a much older video that I had made regarding the bedridden magician. And I had essentially encountered a situation in my life where I was stuck in a bed for 6 months, and it was agony. Like, you can't move, things are knitting, everything's messed up. And so it weighed on me because a lot of the things that I would do as a person, just my personal practice, involved having my body available to kneel or meditate or walk through some woodland that I happen to be familiar with or tuned to. And so uh, having that taken away for a really extended period of time can really amplify your depression. And so my heart goes out to every single person out there who's encountering that, who's dealing with the physical trauma and then the mental trauma that comes with the deprivation of the things that you've become acquainted with, and then having to deal with the new reality. My workaround to this was an understanding of mental alchemy and the mental universe. And I don't want it to sound really like antiseptic, because it's not. But for me, when you're faced with all of this stuff, the thing that really helps is being able to understand what you're going through, to be able to put it into words. If you can't articulate it, for lack of a better example, drawing on the tree, in the place of Hode, if you can't quantify it, define it, give it a word to describe it, it becomes this huge monster that can overwhelm you and annihilate your capacity to think, to do, to act, because it just keeps accreting mass because you don't know what you're dealing with. It's some of the genius of Stranger Things, and the fact that the kids provided themselves a D&D language to describe the supernatural force. So that same principle, where you're using something that you do understand to explain something that you're experiencing, can then be applied to dealing with any number of injuries, physical or emotional or both, in which you're trying to overcome or recover. So for me, it really was important to to delve into that and to dig into that, because there was also a big component of physical pain that was built into all of that, which over time can really degrade your capacity to cope with anything, because now your emotions are all like, going into the toilet, because things hurt all the time and you can't remember what life was like without pain. That happens. And so for me, it helped to be able to articulate that, to dive into that, and to define it, to give it boundaries, to recognize that it didn't exist everywhere, that it just was there, and to work with that. So as a component of that, okay, I then had to understand how my mind worked. And this is where alchemy, as I practice it, is effective. Um, and it is built on a singular premise. Okay. If you can take that then you can then extend yourself into what alchemy offers. And the premise is that the all, meaning everything that we see around us, experience, all the way to the very distant extents of what we call the universe or multiverse or infinite, eternal everything, that is mind, and the universe is mental. And understanding that puts things up here, but it also puts things here. We forget that our heart has has a big component to the mind. That the heart can be the final judge of these things. So understanding that, and just giving yourself room to wiggle there and recognize that we know that the biological process of thinking can be seen as electromagnetic, and that we understand that all the things around us ultimately, when taken to their smallest component, are energy, ergo a participant, if not creator, of electromagnetism. Then all of the patterns, all the things that we see, all the stuff that we experience, everything, including our pain or disability, it is a component of that mental universe. It's part of that. So that means that it can be approached. Because you're in it. Your thoughts are part of that. Your memories are part of that. Your experiences are part of that. Your dreams are part of that. And all of the things that you do in your mind are then a creative element and part of that. What does that mean? It means that at that point, you have choices. You have a position of command, because unlike external influences, the mind can be grappled with. You can communicate with yourself. You can understand yourself. You can articulate how you feel within yourself and go forward from that. And it's pretty dang exciting when it happens. But in the end, what it means is that the experiences that we have had cannot be distinguished. And we know this from scientific study. The memories that we have cannot be distinguished from memories we evoke through mental processes of manipulation. So all the times that, let's say, I've taken a stave and drawn a circle in the yard, because I've done that enough, or maybe in my house, kneeling, or wherever. And those instances, as I recall that and the experience of that, if I'm stuck in a bed, I can recreate that within the vista of my consciousness. I can open it up just like Eleven does when she does her thing in Stranger Things, and it's this big black field. For me, it's the other way around, but it's a large white field. But whichever field you happen to be in, what you populate within that is dependent upon you, because you now are the center point of consciousness. If you're in your bedroom and you are no longer able to get up right now, or tomorrow, or the next day, or several weeks down the road, or months, as it was in my case, then what you need to do is recognize that all of the times that you've engaged in those things before, they they are accessible to you now. It's funny. Doing this live, I'm used to doing this. I'm going to take a break just to exchange with you my where I'm at. Um, it's easier on Zoom conference, but I hope that my thoughts are coherent. I'm trying to give you a line of thinking that will help you, so that you can then retrace through your own experience. But I'm giving you like this big scope and going, okay, the universe that we're in, this is mental, and then you're part of that. And then your interaction with that can influence both inside and outside. Like that's the core of it. And and the understanding that there are elements then that are later described, okay, that give you greater jumping points. But in the beginning, it starts with understanding that your mind has a big deal to do with your recovery. Your mind has a big deal to do with your day-to-day state, whether you are ill or not. And this is expressed in two ways. It's expressed by your vibration, and without getting too esoteric, it's as simple as your attitude. The level when you're low, when you're depressed, when you're injured, your vibration tends to be really low frequency. So a great many things can disrupt that, causing you irritation, causing you anger, causing you frustration, tapping into this reservoir of whatever. For me, it was this huge rage machine underneath all of this calm, because you suppress all your frustration at the disability and all the recovery process and everything. So you you have to recognize all of that, and then move forward from it. Recognize that it is all part of you. All of those experiences are part of you. Your feelings then are part of it. And your mental command can regulate the kind of vibration that you have. You can choose to why me it, or you can choose to see how the universe is giving you an opportunity to move forward, to grow. For me, every time it seemed like it was another time for me to take time and assess, and because the universe is giving you a timeout, effectively. Mm. Because you're not able to do the things that you used to be able to do. So timeout. Now you have to deal with what's on the inside. Not everyone gets that opportunity. When you're in that timeout, that's that's the time that you can then evaluate which direction you want to take your vibe. For me, the direction I took it was towards gratitude. And how this works is this. I always think of in Young Frankenstein, they're digging out the body, and they're discussing how crappy the work is, and then Igor says, "Well, yeah, it could be worse. It could be raining," and then it rains. And so I always think of that in terms of gratitude. I think of uh, uh, what that's like, that it could always be worse, but also to be grateful that it isn't, and to be grateful that what you have um, is there. There's something about being grateful that can elevate. It does two things. Gratitude will elevate your vibe, so that instead of this long form vibration, this very low, easy to disrupt vibe, it begins to repeat more quickly, because gratitude tends to feed on itself. Um, and it also creates polarization, so that you are divided from the injury, and a space is created between you and your injury, you and your depression, you and the things which are bringing you low. It gives you kind of an exclusion zone, to use kind of a bioelectric universe concept. You can learn more about that from Dr. Gerald Pollack up here at the UW. Anyway, um, but it that polarization then draws you towards the things which are like unto yourself. Just as if you're depressed and angry all the time, you tend to draw that to you as well. If you want to get beyond that, then you simply polarize yourself. And for me, the first step is to be grateful, and to move forward from that. Okay. So the second thing, now that we've got all this foundation, the second thing to consider then is how the mental universe operates. So I've given you vibration and polarization, and the keystone between all of that is rhythm. To recognize that whatever you're going through, it can never last forever. Nothing will. no matter how bad it seems, it will always get better. That's been my experience through some pretty rough times. And understanding that you can then insulate yourself from this huge vibratory sweep back and forth by polarizing yourself through an attitude of gratitude, and it pulls you up into that zone. All right, I hope that helps. That we can talk about this more, but I definitely want to handle some other questions and see if I'm actually doing this right. I hope we're still live. It looks like we've got some viewers and we've got a couple thumbs up. Thank you for that, you guys. Every little bit counts. Give me a shout out in the comments if that's working or not. Let's see all the participants. I don't see anyone in the comments section. So um, that's basically what I would like to begin with regard to the bedridden magician, and a recognition that in spite of a sense of powerlessness that can happen during those times of injury, you still have sufficient power to overcome. It, you just do. You do. Believe me, you do. And no matter how rough it gets, you can endure. That's what we do as human beings. We're like endurance machines. It is amazing how much we can endure. And so keep that in mind. Recognize that as an inherent strength of who and what you are as just a member of the community of mankind. And that we together are so much stronger than when we're apart. So that weird sense of isolation that comes when you're like hurt and you get this weird shame machine running in your head because you don't they're like, "Oh," and people are like, "Oh, let me help you." The whole thing that comes with it. It's like this big ugly monster package that can come with a really bad injury, especially if you used to not be that way and now you are, you know. Um, all of that is manageable by you and through your capacity to vibe it up and then polarize yourself. It happens simultaneously. You don't have to sit there and go, "How do I up my vibe and polarize?" All you have to do is start keeping a list, mental, physical, whatever, of everything you're grateful for. That's where I started with the penny jar, by the way. The as my first cognitive thought form. This guy right here. I have one of these. It was my first videos way back in the day. It was about this because this was an easier way for me to physically embody my gratitude by using a copper penny, which is emblematic of the goddess Venus and love, and my appreciation for things. And then I would concentrate on the penny and pop it in the jar. And now I've got a gratitude jar, a positive energy battery, stuff like that. And every time you look at something like this and feel its weight, you know that you're grateful because there it is. There's the proof. Every day I popped one of these in. I'm so grateful for insert blank, and then boom. And then your vibe is up. It can do nothing but go up by just doing the really simple stuff. And this is just like the very simple. Once that happens, you'll reach this turning point and then boom, you'll be able to do a number of other things. And I'd happy to talk about that as well. All right. So I'm going to figure out what's going on here. You'll have to forgive me, you guys. This is like my first one in a long. Oop, there we go. Ah, yes. Aha! Thank you, Horace. Okay, I just figured it out. Okay, I had to double do it, so hopefully everything is here, but I had to look at the other screen. So let me scroll up here and thank you, Horace, for that. Along the lines of mentalism and vibration, it occurred to me that the four worlds could be related to as literal, allegorical, moral, and anagological aspects, hermetically, okay, of any of the present moment. Yeah, Yeah, right? Absolutely. Cool. Um, and, thank you, Goddess, for the comment. Yes, this is the section. So if you have a question, feel free to ask. So this is kind of open forum now. I've kind of finished up the whole thing. Wanted to talk about that because I've been trying to think about how to approach it for a long time. I put a video together, hated it. Anyone who's been a creator knows what that feels like, where you're like, okay, here's the video. And then you rewatch it and you're like, no, no, this is this. So I just thought I'd speak from the heart, just kind of talk about my experience and the things that I did at the very beginning. And being grateful doesn't have to involve anything more. I don't know, I keep focusing on it, but it's so simple. But it doesn't have to focus on anything more than, what you want it to focus on. So I'm grateful for family. Yeah, stuff like that. All right. What else we got? Let's see. I'm going to grab a drink of water. All right. Okay. Well, since you guys don't have any, I'm going to pull out my questions that I've been saving. Uh, I need my glasses. Been watching your videos since. Thank you. That is so cool. Yeah, it's been a journey. I have to tell you, um, I have this really awesome community on Patreon. I'm not advertising here. I'm just lauding them like Horace and how much I have learned from them, from just their questions, from considering the things that they consider. It's one of the beautiful things about when you're teaching and when you get to interact with your students, which is why I want to do more of this. I want to throw a larger net. The other stuff has been for real advanced stuff, and it's helped me really fine tune a lot of stuff that I've been working on for all these years. I've talked about the Saturn key for years. That frickin' thing has been written, rewritten, and tossed in the trash so many times I can't even count because I didn't have it at one point anything that I didn't feel was derivative. Now I do have something. And so that's what I've been drawing upon. That's what I'm teaching from. So I just got to say I really really am grateful to all of you guys. And this is going to be a regular thing. We're going to be doing this all the time. I mean, not all the time, but considerably more often, at least weekly, probably more than that. And the more of you guys want to participate, the absolute more that we'll do. I do actually. Do I? Okay. 0 Point Spirituality says, "Do I practice earthing and grounding?" I do. I absolutely do. It was part of my personal rehabilitation following a back injury that left my feet numb and feeling like I was walking on glass all the time. So I walk barefoot almost everywhere that I can. And on whatever surfaces, just because it's good for me. The practice is really simple, but when you recognize that your point of contact with the entirety of the universe is blunted by tennis shoes or something, because it has to go through that as opposed to I'm walking barefoot on the grass in my backyard, or I'm walking barefoot in my house, or I'm walking barefoot wherever. Those, on the beach, those opportunities are then connecting you with a system of connection on the bottom of your feet that line to just about everything in your body. And so you can then draw energy upward through your feet into your body. I've done this. This is how I healed myself. And because I feel really good, I'm at a point now where I feel I can openly discuss it because it's created an enormous amount of health for me as I've learned how to do this better and better. And I've just felt really impressed that I needed to share this stuff, you know, like soon is better than later. So here we are. But with regard to the grounding and earthing, I find it essential um, because it just really lets you connect. Horace asks, do you think it is important to make sure your feet are contacting dirt as opposed to vegetation and grass, which could have the opposite effect? Okay. You know, when you said the feet into the dirt, do you know the first thing, the image that came to my mind? At the time, I was still recovering from some significant injuries. In the first Avatar movie, when the guy goes running out, like I really resonated with that guy. It was an amazing scene. So he gets his body, and he did exactly the first thing I do. um, one sec. So he did the first thing I would do. Damn it. Uh, I apologize. Mm. Well, anyway, he did the first thing that I would do, which is run out, and he well, you've seen the movie. He runs out, sticks his feet in the dirt, wiggles his toes, and, so what's the difference? Well, um, I would say that for my experience, it is the difference that here's the difference. When you're walking through grass or vegetation, you're walking on a living system. You're still getting that with the dirt or with sand because of the microbial life and the bacteria and things like that. But you're walking on a living system that is sharing a biosphere actively with you. So, um, as my feet touch the grass and I enjoy the vegetation around me, it helps it helps me feel more at one with that environment because I realize that my respiration is supporting that life and its respiration is supporting my life. So we get this universal rhythmic pattern going back and forth between us. So as I was working towards healing, my preference was to walk on the grass, preferably soft grass, because poking hard grass can be very uncomfortable, as opposed to dirt. However, there is something to be said about digging your bare feet into the dirt and wiggling your toes. I'm talking, garden dirt, the loamy stuff that, it's in my backyard back, where you've got topsoil and it's black brown and rich with all sorts of nutrient. And, you run through that barefoot and it feels wonderful. So, stuff like that. But yeah, so that's what I think. I think that the vegetation helps. I don't know if it's necessarily counterproductive. Let's see what else we got here. Um, let's see. 0 Point says, I've always loved, I'm going to get some water in me. I've always loved in the avatar where the ground lights up. Oh, signifying the connection between the body and the ground. Yeah, that was a beautiful scene. I really enjoyed all of that. In fact, I liked how when she puts his light out, she's like, "Put that out." And it shows the difference because there's a transition for him that takes place. All of that was invisible when he brought his artificial light into the forest. And then once that was put out, suddenly everything wakes up. He's having his own actual enlightenment take place, environmentally and otherwise. So, yeah. Um, it's also the stimulation in your feet, the different textures, the shape, the temperature stimulates the nervous system, which is exactly what I was going for when I was working through that. By forcing stimulation into my feet, it rebuilt the nerves. It caused them through stimulation and all that process to actually heal faster and correct a lot of damage that had happened. So, you know, it here's the other thing about going back to what we began with at the beginning. Um, we are not just mental. We would love to believe that we are just mental, but we're not. We have a physical body that has massive demands. And what I have found recently, and I'll be talking about this more openly as we move on into the year, is the significance of what we take within ourselves, the nutrition we take within ourselves, and how that affects us cognitively, how that affects our overall experience. And I'm not talking about like being vegan or what have you. I'm talking about just looking at what we are as human beings and then giving ourselves the correct levels of nutrition, and that we eat too much, which makes us sick and causes illness. And so, like, we'll talk more about that later, but the big component to that is as I learned to correct that as well, I found that a great number of other what I thought were aches and pains relating to surgical and injury issues were resolved because they were being caused by other systems in my body. So it's something to just keep in mind. Yeah. Goddess says, I've injured my knee multiple times. My darkest times have always been during the healing process. I can't wait to run. Yeah. Right. Right. I feel you. I feel you. Yeah, it's especially if you happen to be, or you like being an active person, you like going out and doing things, and especially if that's part of your daily kind of cope with world healing process, which I always advise, if you have an opportunity to get out and connect with nature, do it, you know, just do it. It'll be good for you. And it'll help you. It'll help you gain perspective. So, yep. What else we got? Let's see. Oh, I had my glasses on, was going to read another question, but I'd rather do your questions. So these are old ones. These are like old out of the box questions. So let's see what we got. Yeah, okay, fine. Why do you do what you do? If I remember right, that's why do I do the channel? That's it. That answer's actually changed a bunch of times over the years. Um, uh, when I first started, it was to address what I thought was some poorly communicated information regarding the esoteric. And what's now looking back seems like just I don't know. It just, because it's so wrong, so much of the stuff is so bad. At least it was like 7 years ago. I haven't had much of that run across my feed lately, but when I first started, it was definitely a whole lot different. And so I wanted to address that. I wanted to not make it so scary because it shouldn't be. The fact is, uh, for me, the study of alchemy is the study of what we do, what we're built to do. as human beings. You see, our existence resides within that paradox of that this is real and not real all at the same time. And we negotiate that paradox as living souls that are and then are not, you know, that we are a confluence of fullness and void gathered together into this. And this becomes your bio encounter suit for all of reality until it's not. And what we do literally from moment to moment is transmute things. When we have sunlight strike our skin, it's transmuted into vitamin D, which is necessary for us. When we consume foods, those foods then are transmuted within our body and become muscle and bone, and tissue and blood vessels, you know? And so it's what we do all the time, but we do it kind of on automatic. And I wanted to show the beauty of it. And lastly, the thing that I want to do is oh yeah, I totally could answer a question about astral projection or astral travel. You bet. Let's do it. Lay it on me. I'm gonna drink a coffee while I wait. Oh, well, ah, this doesn't have a rewind function, so I don't know what I was talking about. I know what I was talking about. Someone will have to remind me. Anyway, doesn't matter. Yes, I you may ask a question about astral projection or astral travel. Um, just kind of starting. I suppose I could start until your question actually pops up. And like my feelings about it, is it possible? Is it something that I practice? For me, I tend to remote view as opposed to astral travel. So I've never done the Shirley MacLaine thing, you know, in her book On a Limb. This is how old I am. Anyway, way back in the day, she wrote that book. And she described her astral projection as, coming in, and then she has a silver line, like a tether to her body going off as she floats off into the whatever. I've never experienced that. So for me, the reason I suggest projection is because it seems to happen here. Um, so as I'm looking, the image seems to happen here. And so you can the experience is like playing World of Warcraft or Call of Duty or whatever you happen to play, where you've got the screen and just like your eyes, you just kind of look around and you're there. You're there, but you're here. So um there are other things. Like for instance, it really depends on where you want to go. Oh, sweet. Here comes the question. When I have experienced astral projection in recent times, when I come back into my physical body and come back around, there is a disconnect. And I question whether I actually experienced it or not. Oh, yeah, that's fair. That's fair. So the question is when you come back, is the memory a real thing? The memory of the projection. I suppose it we all need a BS meter, you know? Then my mind tells me that it's just a regular dream. Yeah. See, and so the mind will work as your BS meter to make sure you stay real. I think that's really important, to keep it real for yourself because it's really easy to get stuck in magical thinking and lose sight of the greater picture, which is far more beautiful than magical thinking because you discover the reason why it's beautiful, why it's magical, why you want to participate in that because you are participating. It expands that. So the question then is, are you astral traveling? I'm asking you, 0 Point. Are you astral traveling while sleeping? Or is this a conscious thing? See, is this a point of meditation? For me, it is a point of meditation. So I'm conscious and I'm structuring my will. I'm structuring my environment internally and externally in such a way so that it is promotes my ability to then project outside of myself. And and I have a goal usually. Like I sometimes the goal can be really simple. The goal can be I want to I need a break. That's a good goal. And so the question is, am I daydreaming or am I astral projecting? Well, let's go back to what we talked about at the beginning. What is the universe? The all is mind, the universe is mental. So any mental activity that you engage in is real and not real at the same time. The the way to know is there's a sense of enlightenment that will come from it. And and I'm speaking in terms of the enlightenment that comes uh, full body. I'm not talking just like I got smarter or something. I'm talking I feel my burden lifted. I feel elevated in one way or another, strengthened. I have gained more knowledge, more insight. Um, all of those things can qualify, and so your projection. I'm going to get to the concept of simulacrum in a moment. Your projection. Where are you going? Are you going here? Because here's the beauty of astral projection. It doesn't have to be here. It doesn't have to be anywhere around here. Astral is from astrum. It's stars. It's projecting to the stars. It's it is our ability to go everywhere. That's what it's about. It's about being able to see everything. That's been my goal is to witness things that have happened. And when you realize I'm going to borrow a Doctor Who here. One of my favorite episodes, it's with Martha Jones, it's Blink. And anyway, he explains that normally when we look at time, we see it as cause and effect because we're like a bead on a string. And and that's not how it works. Time actually, when seen from the absolute, is this big ball of timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly stuff. So you can go anywhere inside that bubble at any point if you want to, and I find that it's easier going backwards than forwards for some reason. That's just my experience. All right, here we go. 0 Point says, then my mind tells me it's just a regular dream. I normally wake up in sleep paralysis and it happens from there. Oh, okay. Sleep paralysis is a mixed bag, okay? Because the brain is doing all kinds of weird stuff to you at that point. It's misfiring. It's telling your body you're still asleep. So the waking mind is kind of in this lattice work like this, coming together with sleeping consciousness, and you're in that weird gray zone. So that is an unreliable method of travel because there's already so many physiological things that would could be seen as impairing it. Travel as I've done it and as I know it is done involves a deliberate act, typically. Now the act could be as calm and remember, deliberate is purposeful. It doesn't mean so to for instance go okay I need 5 minutes 5 seconds whatever you can simply command that time for yourself lean back look out the window or whatever and at that moment project and because projection within the astral plane that plane vibrates faster than we do you accomplish more so 5 minutes of that could seem like 5 hours there and then you're back but that's the experience there's a dilation in time when you do that um, when you meditate there's a different flavor to it because of what you're doing. All right. Uh, oh boy. D, no, no, no. Hardcore. Remote viewing really rattled my cage after having successfully doing it multiple times. It kind of put me in a state of psychosis. Wow. Been a self-reflective healing journey ever since. Interesting. I've never had a negative experience. Now, there are other things that you can do. They're a component of this. If you recognize that the astral plane functions as kind of an airlock between worlds, so you could move through that and then move into another domain, perhaps higher or lower vibration. We see this written of all the time in fantasy books, where a person has a dream, sustains an injury, and loses consciousness, wakes up in some mystical realm, right? And so the question is, did that actually happen to them? Are they projecting? Did they move their mind through the thing? John Carpenter of Mars is a great example of that in the whole series, The Princess of Mars. He creates for himself a simulacrum, meaning that his body is here, but then he's projected his consciousness across the vastness of space between here and there, and then reincarnates there. That's a really complicated thing we could talk about probably later on Patreon or something, but realize that this idea exists and that it is employed because people have written about it. So yeah. Um, let's see. Horace says, when I experience an out of body experience that is real as normal walking experience, I try to remember and say to myself during the experience that this is real. Yeah, it helps. It helps. What's interesting is my daughter has reported to me that when she has had these protracted experiences, it can seem like this seems less real than there, which, I'm like, wow, because how much time are you spending there? But, just remember that your body is here. And as such, your body represents the conduit through which your consciousness moves, flows, and is employed. This is what you got. So you can't leave it for long. You always got to come back to it, which is why it's fascinating. There's so much more we could talk about that. But let's continue with the questions here. I thought, let's see, Goddess says, I thought breaking sleep paralysis was the door to get astral projection. Yeah, I don't know. My experience has been that that's not the door. Um, but this is a big universe, and I'm open-minded enough to say that there are many doors. There's a whole hallway of doors. Just because my door is my door may not mean that you have access to the same access I do, or more importantly, that I have access to what you have access to. That if that works for you, then the thing you want to do is examine, um, is it productive? What are you gaining from this? Like, that's really the litmus test. What are you achieving as a result of this? If it's a lot, then dang, go for it, right? And keep employing that as and see that as a method of success. But if you're not actually achieving anything, yeah, then so continuing, I'm gonna grab some coffee here. Hmm. And Horace says, haha, so much better. When I experience, okay, I got that one. What I realized is that all memories rely on comparison to the present experience when they are being remembered for a sort of validity or acceptance, real versus dream, etc. Yeah, it's, and then we got to deal with something like agreed upon tendencies, you know, which is essentially the concept that, well, now we're getting into simulation theory. because the mental universe is 100% compatible with simulation theory. Because all you're exchanging then is the all is mind, is there's a supercomputer out there, and we're a program within the supercomputer somewhere. So, and as Elon Musk suggests, the probability of us being the core program is like a billion to one if you follow simulation theory. Anyway, so the the idea of what is real then is yeah, what is real? Real is wow, right? I'm sorry, 'cause, my mind is just sitting here and I'm thinking, I had a Morpheus moment. If real is what you can see, feel, and experience, then all it is electrical, and the all is mind, and the universe is mental, and we're plugged in somewhere. Or we're some kind of thought machine that's helping the universe understand itself. Possibly, if we're lucky, more likely true than false. But, yeah, the validity of what is real and what is dream, my suggestion, both are real and both aren't real, but both are real. That's my suggestion, and I would draw on Aboriginal wisdom, wherein the capacity of one to walk within one's dreams is reflective of one's capacity to walk within one's reality. So what you bring with you there comes back here, and I think a little bit of vice versa. All right. Psychosis is a word therapists use when they don't understand something. Okay. I'm sorry. Going back, wasn't negative. It was just revealing, questioning my sanity. What is real? Yeah. Well, yeah, we already covered reality. We'll cover it some more, cover it a lot more. But yes, I totally agree. When I achieve it again through meditation, this is 0 point. When I achieve it again through meditation, I have been wanting to try the up, and away you mentioned in one of your previous videos. Yeah, okay. Um, let me let's see. Let me help you fine tune the up, and away. Okay. Um, that thinking later developed into the up, down, in, out videos. So when you are looking at reality, think of it kind of like a donut and in a toroidal form. And at the very center is the highest point, right? So it's like this looks kind of like that. And if you are wanting to go anywhere on that donut, there are four directions really that you objectively can take. You can go up and in, or you can go down and out because you're like relative to the curvature, right? And pyramids and everything else are built around that idea. Anytime you talk about uh, any kind of Z pinch and torus and spheroid shapes, the reason I mention this is because the up, and away is kind of a mixed bag. If you're seeking to go up, and away to leave Earth, let's say, you don't really need to do that. The transition can simply be dislocation of self. They- Edgar Rice Burroughs nails it really in his description in Princess of Mars, where John Carter's looking at the planet, and then he knows that he was looking at it, and then his sleeping event happens, and then he's on the planet, and unlike the movie, he knows he's on the planet because that was purposeful. He went there. In the same context, we are limited only by our knowledge and understanding, by our practical um, understanding of. Oh, Horace, yeah. Um, uh, we're limited by what we practically know or understand. So by that I mean, and unearned knowledge is useless. because it won't get you anywhere. It's the difference between, let's say, knowing how to just turn on a computer and run it, and then understanding why the computer is operating the way it is and being able to problem solve it like an IT person, work the program. Or that's maybe not the perfect analogy, but you kind of get the difference. So the more you know and understand about the universe, this is where the sciencey part comes in. The more you seek to understand the cosmos, the more you wind up understanding yourself, and you realize that things are a lot closer to you than they appear. So it's meaning that you don't have to push out that far if the distance is merely thought, because thought is instantaneous. And one of the most amazing things about the universe that is rarely talked about in physics because it messes things up for them and they have to invent things like dark matter and dark energy to explain it. The universe is aware of all of its components at all times. Otherwise, it would fly apart and things would start crashing together a long time ago. So things are moving together simultaneously, which means that we can become part of that awareness and piggyback on it, similar to how a surfer would ride a really sweet wave and get in there. So um, when you're doing, the first thing you want to do is go in. I'll just leave it at that. You want to go in, and the way out is the way in. Meaning that as you rectify it, think of that torus again. As you move in towards the center and eventually join with that, you can then move out towards any other point. It's just sort of a mustache or a loop de loop, whatever you want to describe it as. But the idea is that once you get to that point of the center, then you can be at any place at any time when you're there. So the up is to go in, and then away launches you back out. Got it? Okay. Um, let's see. Horace says, my interpretation of sleep paralysis is that the initial vibration disparity between you and your body indicating that an out of body experience is beginning. It's funny. I just literally watched a bunch of videos on sleep paralysis. It's so weird how the universe works that way. Anyway, the thing that struck me was, anyone go on these really long road trips and you're riding shotgun and you don't realize that you fell asleep, and then all of a sudden you're like, whoa, and you snap back, like whiplash yourself, bang your head on the headrest, and you're just like, oh, what happened? Yeah, those are instances where I definitely feel like I just dropped back into my body at light speed. But other than that, you know, and like you've been dreaming hard at that point because you're like, boom. But other than that, I don't know. Maybe it's because the car is in motion and you're trying to catch up with yourself. I'm just playing, but that does sound kind of funny, right? You're like running along. Okay, my imagination's getting away with me, but you're running alongside of the car, and then boom, I can make it. I can make it. So, all right. Let's see. How do we always end up on simulation theory? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how we always wind up there. It's freaking me out. It's just when there are too many coincidences, I just blame it on the simulation. Yeah, well, the things that I always find are interesting are like when you set your glasses down right here on the table, and I don't know, was it the uh, something bureau with Matt Damon? Anyway, they're managing time by making sure the universe is put together correctly for moment to moment. They had a Twilight Zone episode about that a long time ago. Anyway, sometimes I wonder if maybe they just forgot to put my glasses down, and then I look away and I look back, because if it was simulation theory, all they have to do is, have that resolve back into my thing. The thing I mentioned about agreed upon tendencies is that if we, and this is where I think an interesting thing we could talk about, achieving singularity, right, through sociological zeitgeist. When we reach a certain point of consciousness, and it doesn't take all of us to do it, we will have this tipping point. And I guess going back to that last, why do I do what I do? I kind of, it's because I want to be part of that in a really positive way. I want to see that tipping point as we as humanity step into this really cool place that will be part of being in the age of Aquarius. So I've had the sensations of falling through the bed before. Yeah, right? That's so weird. Okay, have you had it waking up or when you fall asleep? Because I've had it where I've fallen asleep, and usually this comes when I am so absolutely dead tired, and so I fall asleep, and I'm just like, you know, you're in there, but you really like you feel like you just drifted to the center of the earth or something. It's pretty intense. Yeah, cool. Oh, more coffee. Mm. Wow, it's 11 o'clock. Hey, I hope you guys are enjoying this. Thank you, by the way, all of you for hanging out with me and the thumbs up and the comments, all of that. It really helps. And Horace, thank you very, very much. Very generous. I appreciate that. So, definitely. Um, if you guys want to continue, let me know. I've still got some time on my hands. I'm happy to continue answering questions. Otherwise, if everyone's ready to get on with their day, let me know. I guess there's no way to let me know. Anyone gonna let me know? Oh dear. Mm. Hmm. Well, let's see. I guess I could answer one more question here. No, I'll save that one for later. Well, guys, ah, waking up usually. Oh, you've had the when you wake up, you've had the sensation of falling through the bed when you wake up. Wow, that's interesting. So, does it feel like you're s- dropping into yourself and falling through the bed, or is it? I don't know. Well, thank you, you guys. It looks like it's 11:02, and it seems like we're done. I'm really glad that you all hung out with me today. Definitely, we will be doing this again next week on Thursday. Our poll, by the way, was such that I asked if you wanted to do it in 10 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock in the evening, and we literally had a 50-50 spread. Thank you, YouTube. So we'll be doing both. All righty. Thank you, you guys. I love you. Take care of yourselves. Be positive as much as you can. And if you can't, just be grateful. No matter where you go, there you are. I'll be talking to you guys really soon.